Vita, white sister, ta Vita, I'm a trouble.
Cedric, how you doing?
I'm well, thanks.
I'm
Bheki.
fine.
You're fine.
Happy to see you again. Been trying to run away. I understand. I don't have too much problem, but I still have a problem with their mindset, black and white, because the damage was done big time to the black and white people of South Africa. So I remember when I was growing, just trying to explain to you about the damage which was done to the white people or the white mind at that time, which is still existing today.
Where did you grow up? In which area?
I was born in KwaZulu-Natal. I grew up in Soweto, live abroad, and I'm back here home now. But I grew up here.
What was your first interaction with white people?
Well, my first interaction with white people is when we came out of school, we used to go and work part-time jobs. That was my first one.
Your understanding of white people in those early years of just getting out of school?
Was, we used to think, we used to feel as the young people, like all other young people, we used to love working, like we used to work in the bakeries, part-time job. Never really get used to white folks, but they just were the kind of people were full of anger. You couldn't really understand,
Why do you say anger?
Because the way they were performing, their performance, the way they were talking, everything was harsh. When I grew up, I never even thought the Afrikaans language was the smooth language. I thought it was just a language of anger. The way they used to apply it to us, All the time it was yong, 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 They never were smooth.
But is that not the only way we could get you to do a job?
Maybe that was the mindset. Because if that's what you were taught, you need to push us that much to do the job.
I'm just thinking. I started working in 1964, I think. But I'm just thinking that my memory of most black people is that you had to push them to work. And is it not what we took into the world in terms of needing to push you, like we would push the oxen, like we would push the donkeys? Otherwise, you didn't work.
That's why I used to call it, and I'm still calling it a white mindset. Because, number one, when the European people come into the continent, they find us surviving, they find us working. We're having flocks, we were growing food, we're eating organic food, you know what I'm saying? Without nobody pushing us, But now because of the, what will I call it? The colonization, the mentality of the colonizer, a slave will always be pushed by the master to do anything.
So what you're saying is even in 1960, we saw you as a slave?
Obviously, we were slaves, but undercover. We're not slaves, we're pulling chains, but we were still slaves in a certain kind of way, according to your mind.
Let me just throw something in here. The one thing in my early years, I'm talking 64 to 76, is we often used to talk about the fact that if only these black people wanted to achieve something, they would be a better nation. Because if he earned too much money, he stay away from work for 3 days. So you could never pay him too much. He didn't want a bicycle, he didn't want a radio, he seemed to want nothing. He had no needs. How accurate was that assessment of a black person?
Well, it was a typical white mind, because when you first come into the continent, you find it us having things. How did we accumulate things if we don't need anything? But according to the mentality of the white people at that time, that's what you thought.
We expected you to want a bicycle, whereas you wanted a car.
Obviously, you're trying to shift us from being ourselves to be what you want us to be. That was a problem. And you really didn't want us to be like you, but you wanted us to be something else. I don't know what. Maybe you can break it down, what you wanted us to be, because you did not want us to be like you.
You say you didn't understand the whites. At what stage did you become politically active, and did you understand that what was happening to black people was unacceptable?
I always knew if my father was called a boy by another man, I always understood that was sickness. One way or the other, somebody was supposed to take care of that business, because it was wrong from the beginning anyway. Sorry for my phone.
Okay. How was your father reacting to being called a boy?
He understood that it was just like a language. That the white man, when he says a black man, he says boy to a black man. He didn't really regard him as a man like that. So he understands, my father he understands. Maybe didn't understand some other pushing, but he understood the language.
Beside the workplace, where else did you come into contact with white people?
Not too much. I only come across white people when they were asking me about past laws, my special. They had some stamps. In our books, there were some stamps were called special, I don't know they were special in what, but they were talking about, they were explaining about, are you working or you out of work? Where are you from? So you're supposed to go and experience prison. That's how we saw the white people. And in a court when he judged me.
How often did you experience prison?
Man, shit. Being a young black man in this country, many a times. Many a time. Just come across my piece of paper is not right. Maybe I forgot it at home. I must go to prison. So we're the babies of prison.
So your interaction was piece jobs and the parcels. Did you ever get permanent employment?
Oh yes, we did. When I grew up, then I was employed permanently. I was a T-boy. I remember working for this company. I couldn't understand the master, The boss sometimes will come in the morning, fine, And sometimes when he comes, boy, you don't know what the wife did to the boss. So you'll have to suffer consequences of the boss is not happy today. I used to call us, the stress reliever of the of the white man. Whenever he has a stress, he had to come to us and mess us up. So we understand that was the name of the game,
In the new South Africa, what is happening to relationships between blacks and whites?
You don't see it too much because there are very few Cedrics amongst the white people. There's a lot of fake that is taking place. You'll find the black people become the managers, good boys. It's just like the good bus boy of the yesterday. Today is called the manager of a company, but you can still see that he hasn't got the sufficient power as a manager. He's still a duplicate of a manager to somebody. So that's a struggle.
I've asked this question a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. How do you know that I'm not faking?
Because I can see you that you are trying. You are trying to move away from the cage, because all our people, black and whites, are in a cage.
Does this mean that when black people interact with white people, they are faking and pretending?
Many a times. For survival, they must fake. But for you, what you're gonna fake for? You're trying to, to understand exactly what's going on. I know you are faking to be not black enough when you come before the white people. And to the black people, they still see you as a white man. So, man, I know you are suffering peacefully.
To what extent do white people fake and pretend when interacting with black people?
What do you mean, what happened?
Now, to what extent do you notice it?
Man, all the time, I know them. They try to be cool, they don't become themselves. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes until you touch him, because there's the K word, you know. They say it's not allowed in the country, but it still exists. But because people, they must fake all the time, the system must fake like the name is not being used behind the closed doors, and the master and the white man must act like he's not using the word when he's angry until you touch him. Then you can see him. Squeeze him up, you know. You must suck him a little bit so you will find out who he is.
What is your approach to African, Afrikaner, white person in Africa, and whether we belong here or should go back to Europe?
No, these are our brothers. These are our brothers, our sons, and they were born from us. They know that. It's a new thing, but they know it now. They tell you in the radios, it begins in Africa. Life begins in Africa. But they try to reject their fathers. They try to be something else. They try to live a lie. Those are our brothers and sisters who are supposed to come back home. We need to baby them to come back home in their mind. It's a mind problem.
So it's just the mindset that is keeping the white from being an African.
Obviously.
The white culture has not yet got to understand that Ubuntu is essential for an African. What I'm saying is they don't understand Ubuntu.
Obviously.
Because Ubuntu can only ever occur when it is a one-to-one relationship in a community with that community. We tend to think that Ubuntu is sharing, and then we want to share as a large group with another group, and we believe that's Ubuntu.
No.
But Ubuntu gets right down to individual
Like we are talking now.
interaction.
This is Ubuntu. Man on man. Man to man.
We're sharing one another. We'll share water and whatever else we need to share, but we need to share one another in Ubuntu.
That's true. That's true. No, you have grown a big time. You're growing a big time. If you are faking, man, you're becoming an expert.
So I've got a lot to share with the rest of the white community. Either I help them open their minds the way my mind has been opened by this community, or I teach them to do a decent job at pretending.
Yes. One or the other, but you can be a very good tool to assist our brothers out there. I'm sorry to say the brothers to white people, because sometimes they get messed up. You know, if you say they're brother and I'm not your brother, can't you see I'm white like he have painted himself? He doesn't even understand that he did not apply for this whiteness. It's God's creation. So he is my brother, because I'm older and have grown and I have researched maybe more than many of them. That makes me to understand that these are my people, these are my brothers, so we are one. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Bheki. And with regard to the voice of the voiceless, not just what we've recorded here, but what we spoke earlier on, lets me believe that the voiceless that you are talking about is not just the black people.
No. When we talk of the voiceless, we're talking of those who cannot speak for themselves. The voiceless, it's just across the color line. It's not just for black people, not for white people, not for colored or Indian, but it's for humanity. Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
That's what we're talking about.
Thank you, Bheki.
Take care now.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
White, see, stop.